So as a lot of you guys already know, Hypixel released some huge changes to how strength works, cutting every Skyblock player's damage significantly. As a result, the Withered Reforge also took a huge hit, while other items such as the One For All enchantment were indirectly buffed. Now you see, this brings a very interesting question to the table, as most people would think that Fabled would be the better Reforge. However, this isn't the only other Reforge that exists for weapons. So, with that being said, let's get straight into the video. Alrighty, so as you can see in today's video, we're going to be covering a special Reforge stone. Now, obviously because these strength changes that were added to the game very recently have drastically impacted the way that people play this game, I figured it would be a good idea to make another Reforge video, as a lot of people want to know what the best things for damage are going to be. However, this video is going to be a very special one, as I feel like a lot of you guys have already seen a couple of Fabled or Withered comparisons, and don't worry, I should be getting one of these videos out roughly next week. Although I was thinking to myself before actually recording a Fabled versus Withered video again, and I was thinking, wait a second, if the Fabled Reforge is going to be better than the Withered Reforge because it's not super strength focused, then how about the Suspicious Reforge? Now for those of you that don't know what this Reforge does, as you can see right there on a legendary item, it not only increases the base weapon damage by plus 15, not 15%, but plus 15. It also increases your crit chance, which is kind of nice. I guess it can be a little bit helpful if you do need to hit that 100% crit chance mark, but it also increases your crit damage by 85%. So not only do you get some massive weapon damage boost, which no other Reforged stone actually gives you, as far as I'm aware at least, but it also gives you that extra crit damage, which is really, really helpful. And since strength is kind of useless now, this crit damage bonus is going to be very, very useful. Now for this video, I will be putting the Suspicious Reforge on my Scylla here. Now I have got the Withered Reforge on this thing, and I'll talk about this weapon a little bit more when we get to the damage tests, but I will also be testing it on my One For All Emerald Blade. Now the reason why I want to test it on this weapon is because ever since they did do all these changes to the way that strength works, One For All is kind of busted. Even if we just go ahead to the auction house and just check out the prices of these books here, the cheapest one is 17.5 million coins, and if we go up further and further in the auction house, they all end up reaching around 18 million. And right now, if you're to buy One For All from the auction house, you're gonna get absolutely ripped off. I'm pretty sure it's around 2 million coins out of the bedrock chests on floor 7. And if that is the case, you are losing a lot of money paying this much for them, as they have been significantly marked up thanks to the new update. But with all that out of the way, let's cut straight to the chase right here before we get into all the hefty damage testing. So as you can see on my Emerald Blade, I do already have the Withered Reforge on it, and as for my Scylla, I also already have the Withered Reforge on this too. Now I did go ahead and I bought the Suspicious Vials that I will need to put on both of these weapons when it comes to the Suspicious damage test. However, the way that I'm going to be structuring this video is as follows. I'm going to start off with the Withered Reforge damage test first. I'm going to hit some criticals. I might go ahead and hit some zealots as well to give you guys some enderman damage too, and I'll also go inside of a floor 7 dungeon run and get some hits on the crypt lurkers, so you guys get some damage numbers inside of dungeons with all like those blessing buffs and the stars that you do get from the weapons. And then once of course we have done all of the Withered Reforge damage tests, we're going to go ahead and use the Suspicious Reforge damage test, and I'll get my editor to overlay the different damage numbers from the Withered Reforge over the Suspicious Reforge, and that way you guys get a side-by-side comparison to really see which one does more damage. And then of course, once we've finished all of the damage testing, I will get into my final thoughts at the end of the video, talk about what works, what doesn't, why it doesn't work, and also the future of the damage system in this game. And then we'll wrap things up there for the end of the video, and hopefully this should help you guys out. However, last but not least, it's really important that before we get into any damage testing at all, you guys have a thorough understanding of what gear I'll be using. So with that being said, I'll be using this 3/4 Necron set and a Tarantula helmet. Mind you, all these pieces are ancient, 5-starred, recombobulated, fuming hot potato booked, and maxed out as much as possible. And then as for my Scylla, these are the enchants I've got on it. I do have an Art of War, I do have fumings on this, and I've also recombobulated and 5-starred it as well. As for my accessories, I have 11 mythic, 8 legendary, 2 epic, 21 rare, 10 uncommon, and 14 common, where all the commons are either on shaded and some of them I believe are also on forceful. And then the mythic and legendaries I still have on strong. Now I am aware that these may not be the best talisman optimizations with the new system, although that should not affect the damage testing too much at all, as I may be doing lower damage than what I could be, but the numbers will still stay consistent between both reforges. I am also Combat 50, Foraging 31, and also Catacombs 32. And as I normally do in all of my testing videos, I will not be using any pets for this video, so that way you don't get any pet items affecting things or any special boosts that these pets will actually give me. So with that all being said, let's go ahead and get some withered damage testing with my Scylla on the crypt scores here. So getting some hits on the first crypt score, we do 211,000 damage, followed by another 211,000 damage. Then we did 259,000 damage with the special Ring of Love ability. Then another 211,000 damage. And then on the final hit here, we do another 211,000 damage. So now switching over to the One For All Emerald Blade here, if I go ahead and get a hit on the crypt ghoul, we do 364,000 damage, followed by another 365,000, 365,000 again, and then we do another 365 and 66,000 with those final hits. So moving on down to the end now, I'm going to get some damage tests on the 9,000 health Enderman. If I go ahead and just hit the one that's right over here, we do 263,000 damage, followed by another 263,000 damage. Getting another hit, 263,000 once again, followed by another 263,000 damage for those final hits. And now moving over to the One For All Emerald Blade now, in theory, we should do the same damage as we did to the crypt ghouls. So getting some hits on these Endermen, we do 365 and 66,000 damage on both of those hits, followed by another 366 and 366,000 damage, and just for good measure, another 366,000 damage with the One For All Emerald Blade. Okay, so now moving on to the dungeons damage test, I will be doing the damage on these little crypt lurkers that spawn from the graves over here. So to get things started, I am using my archer class. I could go berserker to do a little bit more melee damage, although once again, the damage is not really the problem here. It's just to compare how much more damage we deal. So as long as I stay as the archer class for these melee tests with both reforges, then the damage numbers should be comparable and you'll still be able to see which one fares better. So to get things started here, I'll go ahead and just super boom this grave right here. And if we get a hit on the undead, we did 976,000 damage in one hit. And then moving on to the second grave here, we get another hit on the crypt undead. We did about 976,000 damage once again. And now if I go ahead and move over to the Emerald Blade damage test, like the other ones that I did before, they should stay all the same as the Emerald Blade does not have any dungeonizable stars on it. But going ahead and blowing up this crypt right here, when we do get a hit on the crypt undead, we did about 121,000 damage per hit, which is really awkward. I did not actually expect this weapon to do so much less damage than the Scylla actually does, although it's definitely clear that the Scylla was going to do more damage in dungeons either way, as the Emerald Blade does not have any stars on it. So as you can see, coming off of all of the withered damage testing, the OFA Emerald Blade is a lot stronger in most situations than the Scylla was. Now of course, the Emerald Blade was not going to be doing anywhere near as much damage in dungeons, and that's just because it can't be starred, or at least from my knowledge, you cannot 5-star it. Now if I wanted to make this video a little bit better, I would go out and try to get myself a 5-star giant sword, so that way I'd be able to compare a dungeon weapon to a dungeon weapon. But because unfortunately I do not have my hands on a giant sword, I had to stick with what I currently have. Either way, if we just take all of the out of dungeons damage, it is clear that the OFA Emerald Blade does do more damage. So let's swap over to the Suspicious Reforge now to really see how much more damage or less damage the Suspicious Reforge actually does. And now that we have gone ahead and reforged both the Scylla and the Emerald Blade to both be on Suspicious, let's go ahead and do the exact same damage test with the Scylla first up here on the crypt ghoul. So if I go ahead and get a hit on this, we do 206,000 damage, followed by another 206,000 damage on both of those crypt ghouls, doing 207,000 and then 206,000 damage once again on the crypt ghouls. And now if we move on to the Emerald Blade once again, getting some hits on these Crypt Ghouls, we do 338,000 damage, 339,000 on that one, 339,000 again, followed by another 339,000, and then 340,000 on the final hit. And now if we go ahead and move over to the end once again for the end damage numbers, starting off with the Suspicious Seller here, if we get a hit on the Enderman, doing 257,000 damage, followed by another 257,000 damage. Once again on that third Enderman, and on the fourth Enderman, we do the 257,000 damage, followed by another 257,000 damage on the final hit. And now swapping over to the One For All Emerald Blade, we do 339,000 damage, just like the Crypt Ghouls. We're doing 339, 340, 341,000 damage, followed by another 341,000 damage, and then 340,000 damage on the final hit. And then moving on to the dungeon test, just like I did with the Withered Reforged, let's go ahead and just blow up these two crypts here, and that way we can see how much damage we will deal with the Suspicious Seller. So going ahead and getting a hit on the Crypt Undead, we'll do 819,000 damage, and then once again, if I go ahead and blow up this crypt right here, we do about another 819,000 damage on the final hit. And then just for good measure, if we switch over to the Suspicious Emerald Blade, it will do a lot less damage because it's not a dungeonizable weapon, but we do about 102,000 damage per hit, or 108,000 damage on each hit right there, and it definitely isn't as powerful as the Scylla is, nor is it as powerful as the Withered Reforge. So as you can see, after doing all of that testing with the Withered Reforge and the Suspicious Reforge with two separate weapons, it's very clear that the Withered Reforge is still actually stronger than a Suspicious Reforge, although it's not stronger by that much more. Now this is actually really surprising. I was kind of expecting that the Suspicious Reforge would be much more beneficial on the One For All Emerald Blade, although after all of that testing, it is quite clear that the Suspicious Reforge is probably never going to be valuable either way. Although that being said, it would be interesting to see how much more damage the Suspicious Reforge does with a mythic weapon, because as you can see, with the mythic weapon, the crit chance and crit damage goes to plus 10% and 110%, although the base weapon damage increase is still only plus 15. However, these tests are not very complete, and there's still a lot more that I do need to cover in following videos. Now, obviously, like I mentioned at the start of the video, the Fabled Reforge does exist, and the Fabled Reforge has a very good chance at beating the Withered Reforge, as the Fabled Reforge focuses a lot more on crit damage and crit chance, and it actually has like a RNG type element to it, where you do deal up to 20% more damage with the Fabled Reforge, although not every hit will be that extra 20% damage. If these changes to the strength stats still remains in the game by next week, I will have a Fabled and Withered comparison out for you guys to show you guys which one is more valuable and whether or not you should still be using the Withered Reforge. But even though One For All is definitely a better enchant, and the meta at the moment seems to be One For All on every weapon, the Suspicious Reforge definitely does not beat the Withered Reforge, and it probably does not beat the Fabled one either. So with all that being said, that's going to wrap up everything that I had for today's video. Now, if you did find this useful or informative in some way, then please do consider leaving a like and consider subscribing to the channel, as I will be making Hypixel Skyblock videos every Wednesdays and Fridays. And just like I mentioned in this video, I should have a Fabled and Withered comparison out next week, as long as I don't make any hefty changes to the strength stat once again and everything stays the same. Now, if you have any further questions, comments, or you'd like to see some extra comparisons and damage testing elsewhere, I do stream live over on Twitch every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So if you do have any further questions about this video or any of my other videos in particular, then you can always come by and stop over there. But with all that being said, that's gonna wrap up everything that I had for today's video. And as always, take care and peace. Why is Chugga addicted to first pull? What are you smoking? What are you smoking? Why did Fluffy make his own one? Oh my god. Ah! Why did you do that? Oh my god. Why is it... Guys, help me. What do you mean, bro? What was that squeak? Juice? Juice?